Thank you so much for coming. True to form, Kieran will come out unexpectedly and still somehow win you all over, even though I got here early. I'm so happy to be amongst my peers, and if I would love to open it up to questions, or if anybody has any, and you don't feel the need to pressure, but otherwise it'll be really weird. So, oh yeah, hi, in the front here. Yeah, hi.
Hey, how are you?
Good, and I'll repeat it if you can hear, so don't yell at this innocent person. Yeah.
That's right. Well, thank you first for sharing the film.
Thank you.
I think he's here.
Oh, hey, hey, hey.
Something happens, like he does something or something's revealed, and you're like, oh, well, I have to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
But you managed to do it until like the very last moment of the movie.
Yeah.
Can you talk about your process in writing this and when that moment was like, I found it. This is the piece. I've landed the plane. And for Kieran, could you talk about your expectations? Well, I guess your response when you first read the script and how that changed while you shot the film.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, thank you so much. And if you couldn't hear, he was just saying like the psychology of Benji, how I tracked it in the writing process, and then how Kieran found it as a reader and then ultimately interpreter, performer, etc. And for me, I had written this kind of character, Benji, in a play I wrote called The Spoils, and the character's named Benji, and it was about this kind of guy who was this charming, maladaptive, ultimately, hurting but empathic in a kind of perverse way person. And so I had played the character not as well as Kieran, but I had played the character in that play, and it was in my head so much that I just understood those shifts in an unconscious way, the way a person has unconscious shifts, and they later look back at their day and say, I wonder why I got so angry there. That's so strange. I wonder why I was crying for that person. Somebody who kind of just the way complicated psychology works. And so I was just in the spirit of that, and I had written these two guys in a screenplay that was set in Mongolia, and that didn't work, and then so I changed it to this. And so I had like so many iterations of this person that I can understand the psychology in a way that was not intellectualized. I could just feel it, and I knew how he would react. I knew that something would bother him, like when they're at the scene at the after the cemetery, they go to have this dinner, and everybody's laughing, everybody's sharing these nice stories, and it just occurred to me that Benji would be infuriated right at the beginning of the scene, because everybody's sharing these stories. Oh, well, my cousin did this, and he can't stand when people are just having that kind of dumb small talk, and when he's not in control of the conversation. So it's like unexplainable why he's suddenly angry there, but that's what it is. Everybody's happy, and my father did this. Oh my God, really? And just that kind of stuff just makes him crazy.
And I think that was exactly it. I think I was able to, that was right on the page. I think, and it was how you phrased it. I felt like within the first 15, 20 pages, I know exactly who this guy is, and I know their dynamic. I felt like I could feel their history. All right, great. And then about 10 pages later, he would do something completely different than what I thought he would do. And I think sometimes he just reacts that way just to spite you, because, you expect me to have this kind of lovely conversation with you because I was nice to you before. Well, I'm not going to do that. And I don't know what that is exactly. There's one scene I talked about that was like my favorite when I read it, which was the scene where just like eating soup and talking about Marcia. And I didn't know at the time why it was my favorite scene. It wasn't until I watched the movie. It was because the whole point of this trip for Benji is actually to try to connect with his cousin and joint with him, hang around with. Anyway, David now is actually making this effort to try to what did you talk to Marcia about? And he's like trying to connect, and it's kind of working. And I think because it's working, and maybe just because Benji's not in the driver's seat, he goes, yeah, I'm going to shut that down. I don't want to talk to you about that. And I found that to be so, I don't know, so surprising, and just like, again, I didn't know what the scene was until I saw it, but I just read it and went like, this guy, I don't think he has any thought before he speaks or acts. And I couldn't wait to just go in there and do it, and it all made complete sense to me.
What is beyond one of those pre-organized tools?
I'm going to go first. No, because definitely Benji would not have thought about that stuff or tried to plan, and that actually wasn't even the point of why he wanted to go there. That's why there's that thing in the airport where he has the itinerary. He basically can't even understand it. He's like, just wake me up and tell me to get in the car. That's not the point of it. But he wants to experience everything so much and have it be so real, and yet he's not willing to put forth the this sort of effort. And that's sort of what I wanted to do, was just go in there, and the whole point is try to connect with this guy, and also just try to connect with everybody around me as directly and as quickly as possible. So I didn't actually want to do to me, we could have been anywhere. We could have been at a 7-Eleven. So that's my answer to that.
Yeah, I'd done a few tours. I didn't do this tour, but my wife and I did go to Poland in 2008 and went to all these places. The house that we filmed the scene at, where the boys put down the stones, is my family's house. They lived there up until 1939. And so, so this trip, basically my wife and I did on our own, just backpacking. In terms of being dragged around to stuff, yeah, I did it in Venezuela when I was 18, and China, and Nepal, Cambodia, we did a tour. And like, so I've been on these tours before, and one of the things, like, I'm not good in these group settings, but my wife is really good. She's over there, so I have no choice. But basically, she's like very social and comfortable with people, and I just am kind of observing the group dynamic, and it always just tickled me that within 2 seconds you have like a group dynamic that has nothing to do with the place you're visiting. And so you're just in this weird little bubble, an English-speaking bubble in a non-English-speaking country. And I find it so funny, just the way you can kind of travel and in some ways not really engage with local culture, which is something Benji brings up in the cemetery. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Talk about
Hi,
the technical aspects of shooting in the camps, and thank you for including it and for actually going there. And I'm just curious what that was like on the day, and what kind of what provisions you had to take, and who was involved, and just really what it was like being there on the day. I'll give you the mic back.
Thank you so much. That's such a sweet question, and thank you for going to the movie, and I'm so happy it had an effect on you, unless you hated the effect. It cracked me open, and I'll never heal. Yeah, it was very strange to write a scene in a concentration camp and think like, oh, of course we could just go in there. It was a very strange process. When we get, basically, it's so sensitive to shoot a scene there. It took 8 months to get access to it. I wrote emails to Holocaust museums around the world to see if they can help me get to this one obscure one in Poland. And they finally let us in there, and it was really a beautiful relationship. But it was this weird thing of like, as Kieran says all the time, it'd be very strange to have done scene work there, which, as we all know here, it would have been weird to have, marks and actors say, wait a second, but we never went to, something. It would just be odd, because the place is so melodramatic in its infrastructure. So it's just like, I just wanted to do exactly the opposite of drama there. So no music, put the camera in a place, have the actors walk in, please don't block each other so we can see you all, look at whatever it is and walk out. And, I can't say enough amazing things about Kieran's performance in the movie, but he was so like living in the spirit of the moment. I'd never seen an actor just so live viscerally in every single scene, to the point where he never wanted to talk about the scenes with me, he never wanted to get notes, unfortunately, from me. And he was just like, he was sleeping 2 hours a night on a mattress on the floor of his hotel room for no reason, except that he was like just living in the spirit of this thing. And so we were in the camps, we went into the room with the shoes, and he's just standing in front of it, and just suddenly he goes, just like that. And I don't think I noticed it until we were in the editing room. I was just like, oh my God, that's because of the way we were shooting it, and because of his beautiful, spontaneous performance.
You're a very nice guy. Yeah, because it was that on the page. It was written that like the characters walk in and get to take it in. I remember even the first time I read it, appreciating that there wasn't, like he said, scene work or anything like that. It would have felt odd if it felt like a set. If I like walked out of the room and somebody was playing Wordle on their phone and their director's chair. It just wasn't that. It was like, camera was set up in a very practical way. We walked in, as he said, and did it. But I do remember there was one time where we walked in a room and they were rolling, and there was like it wasn't a light. It was like
a white styrofoam.
White whiteboard that actually blocked what we were supposed to see, and I kind of like, I remember I reacted big. I was like, ah! And I like walked out, and like, where'd the actor go?
Yeah.
And I was like, we need to see this stuff, and it was like, oh yeah, we gotta move that thing. Yeah. But I really appreciated that we were able to just like, take it in the way that, I got to experience that for the first time, because I'd never been to a concentration camp before. So how I experienced it was, in character / myself / nobody, the way that one would sort of take that in, and it was, it was an experience.
In the middle there. And it was close. So Chopin is from Warsaw, and I think the kind of urban legend, or maybe it's true, is that like his heart is buried in Poland and his brain is buried in France because he spent time in both. And so I love the music so much. I can't think of a better score than Chopin music to begin with. And when I was writing the scenes, I was listening to it so much, so and it was evoking something in me emotionally. So like, when you're sitting in front of a computer, it's hard to feel the emotions that you would feel on a set or feel while you're watching a movie, but the music did that for me, and it gave me a shortcut to have those emotions so that when I'm writing it, I could feel something that I would then feel again while I was acting. And so I put all the songs in the script where they would go. And then so on set, I would give the music oftentimes to like the cinematographer. I say, this is the pace of the scene. I give it to the dolly grip, the guy who's pushing the dolly, and I said, this is going to be the song, so go to this pace. And then when we were editing the movie, it could fit right in because the songs were already there. And then most importantly, when the investors asked me to put pop songs in, I could say, no, it was already in the script that it was Chopin. So, and plus it's like free, because it's public domain. So I had two arguments against their not. Thanks for asking.
Shakespeare.
No, this is
Okay,
good.
okay, hi, in the hat there, in the white hat.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious about the filming process. Jesse, you as the director and the writer, you're kind of running the show here. And what discussions and expectations did you have when you start rolling? And then I guess for you, Kieran, what were you sensitive to that? How much were you like, okay, am I going to improv it all here? It had the sense of that. So I guess I'm just kind of curious what the experience was filming this.
I'll start, but you should do most of the yakking here. Yeah, because of what I said earlier about like, I completely understand this guy. Is the only thing I think I've ever read where I said I have no questions and I have no notes. There was nothing I felt like I needed to do to fill in the gap here. And because of the nature of the guy, him being so unpredictable and spontaneous, I didn't want to prepare. And thankfully I learned lines fast so often on like, I would show up, go to the tiny little trailer box they had for me and put some shit in my hair and put on the whatever costume and start hitting the set going, what are we shooting today? Which would make him very nervous. Are you shocked? He occasionally gets anxious. And there he goes, he works really hard on this thing and the actor goes, what are we doing today? But I think that could have easily been interpreted as like the lazy actor going like, I'm just gonna show up and do my job and whatever, but it was because, and I think you knew this right away, that it was like, no, I need to just not prepare this. I didn't want to say the words out loud until we were there doing it. And it just needed to be that. So I think there was a couple days where it was a little bumpy in that I didn't want to like rehearse and prepare. My plan was sort of like, let me just do it. And if I'm wrong, please tell me I'm wrong. But I don't want to like talk it and think it. But I think after just really a couple of days, it started. And also I think there was a rapport that happened like take one right away on the first day between the two of us.
Yeah, definitely.
Which helped. So like I think after that first take I was like, oh, this one's gonna be good. It's gonna be all right.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Kieran was so wonderful and wouldn't like really engage with me, but it was going so great. Like I don't know if anybody here has like been in something that they're directing too, but like I had like a lot of jobs in the movie, and because he was so brilliant and so spontaneous and alive and wonderful, it was like one of the things I would just say, I'm just going to stay as far away from that as possible because he's doing so well. Except the first day he told me he thought his character shouldn't curse.
Yeah, I don't remember that at all.
Yep.
You also said I said something about hummus or something that I don't remember.
Yeah, you did a
Like,
bad thing about hummus.
Obsessing
too.
about like the food on the table.
You did both of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe you. I remember stuff I do.
But like the point is, every other word out of his mouth is like fuck, and yet like the first day right before we're shooting, he's like, I don't think I would curse. I'm like, okay. So there's one scene where he's not cursing that much. When we're walking through the park, you say no bad words in that park.
I know. I called her a fucking loser.
Yeah, but no bad scripted words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can say it myself.
Yeah.
If I make them up, then it's fine.
For me, I don't know if people can relate to this, but like I don't watch myself in movies ever. I haven't watched in 15 years. I haven't seen myself. I just get self-conscious, and I want to like live in the moment as an actor on the set and never think that I'm going to have to see this thing and I'm going to have to look at my face. And it's really helped me as an actor, and I recommend it to people here if you can do it. For me, it's really helped me as a actor to get out of my head to just think I'm never going to watch this thing. It's just made me feel more alive on set, not thinking about where the camera is or what I look like, because I'm never going to see it. And so that's helped me as an actor with this. It was weird because, I'm directing myself, so I have to like hold the monitor and see myself. And then, so what I would do is, we were moving so quickly. It was like such a quick shoot. So we were moving so quickly, so I would just, I would do the scene and the camera was on me and I blocked it, seeing a monitor so I could see what I'm looking like. But then when we would do the scene, I would just ask basically producers and cinematographer, did I look okay? Was that okay? And one of our producers was Emma Stone, so she's like, greatest actor in the world, so she was behind the camera, and so she would tell me if it looked okay or to stop doing all that stuff with my face, and then we would move on. Thanks, you want to go all the way in the back? Can you do it?
Did you meant it to be like comparison of mental illness, or one of them is treated and therefore is successful, the other one is not treated and therefore his life is not in the right place?
Yeah, I mean, not really. I'm not trying to like diagnose anybody. The movie is not about mental illness in particular. It's about two people, and I once heard a great quote about mental illness, which is that there are as many mental illnesses as there are people with them, which is to say it manifests in people in so many different ways. I have OCD and it manifests in certain weird things that I have to touch, but my sister has it and she just has to go turn the oven off. So it, mental illness is complicated, and I'm not an expert or an academic, so that's not what this is. But one of the things that you bring up is true, which is that my character medicates away his anxieties and his stresses. So I'm basically trying to just pile it down, to just block it. And Kieran can't. Kieran is the exact opposite. Everything is out there, and he can't stand that I've kind of neutered myself emotionally, because he loses control over me, and I'm not the person that he can feel that with anymore. So it's kind of tragic. But I'm writing about things that I know, but not about illnesses that I'm an expert in. That's not what this movie is really trying to do. But thank you so much for your astute
And I'll just
observation.
tack on a quick one with that, which is that I like that you said you wouldn't try to diagnose the character, and I could tell right away in reading it that this guy is, troubled to some degree, but I don't think, as much as he's very feeling and is connected to his emotions and wants to connect with other people and has a good amount of self-awareness, he has a lot of blind spots. And I think there's a lot that he doesn't understand about himself, about why he can't sort of figure out the world. And I only wanted to know as much about the character as the character would know about himself. It sort of left me free to think that he was kind of all right. I don't know.
Oh yeah, right in front of that person's is like this, like where it just felt like if it rains for a half an hour somewhere on a set, our entire movie's done. Like we were there by the skin of our teeth. The airport is a little airport that hadn't yet opened in Poland, and we needed them to be JFK and Warsaw Airport, and they told us a week before shooting, you can't, the character can't bring weed through the airport, and so that's why I rewrote it that he mails it to himself, because they told us.
I remember you telling me that, and it was like, even if you explain to them, no, it's scripted, you don't even see it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's fake weed, and they're like,
And it's supposed to be JFK.
Yeah.
So it's like, we said to them, it's supposed to be JFK, and we're not actually taking weed, and they were like, but people will see it in the credits that it's us, and then they'll take weed through our airport. So it was just, it was just crazy. So there are certain things, like, for example, when it's Warsaw Airport, you never see the ceiling of the airport. When it's JFK, you see the ceiling, so that means we could do kind of lower shots, you can see the ceiling. So stuff like that, all the stuff in Warsaw, we digitally changed posters to orange, which is orange in the Warsaw Airport, and then but they're actually blue in the JFK Airport, just to be based on JFK. And then the train, there's that shot where we're running towards the train that's moving, and I dropped my hat. Pure luck. There was not supposed to, we didn't have the opportunity to have a train there, but a train was coming, and I told Kieran, I was like, just run, do whatever lines we can get out, and run. Pure luck. And then the scene on the train was by far and away the most difficult thing, because that's not a moving train. So we were basically on a train where they fix trains. So we were in a garage where they fix trains. We put green screen on the side of it. And so when Kieran and I are like walking through the trains and like sneaking through all these trains, it's the same car over and over and over again. Yeah, so it was just, this movie is like a logistical nightmare that, thank you so much for bringing it up, because you're a savvy audience member, because you could tell that like that airport is going to be difficult, the train is going to be difficult. Most people watch the movie and it feels like an intimate kind of story, so they don't realize that the logistics of a movie like this at $3 million in Poland is kind of unfathomable.
You also skipped like the biggest headache, which was the day before you were told we can't shoot the scene in the security thing at the airport.
Yeah.
At the security thing.
Yep.
Was that the day before?
Yeah, the day before we shot, they said you can't shoot the conveyor belt scene where he's kind of flirting with the TSA agents and everything. And so our production designer, like in the middle of the night, found a private security company that owned the conveyor belts and brought it in. You know, the airport was just a
She
pain
had
in
to
the
like
ass.
paint stuff and build things too, and then they had
Yeah.
to find a corner of the airport that looked like it could be security.
Yeah.
That was all within like
A
10,
day.
12 hours. It's crazy.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I think we have time for 2 more. Sorry, should we go? Could we go after you? Before you? Could we just go up there and then you could finish it? Is that okay?
Okay.
I know that's more complicated than it needs to be, but hi, what's your time?
So I thought the two of you had such an amazing chemistry throughout the whole movie. And Jesse, as the lead and the director and the writer, I imagine you have preconceived notions of what that character Benji would be. And so, particularly with casting, when Kieran came in, did he meet sort of the vision you had of that character, or did it sort of morph into something else because of Kieran?
It kind of morphed into something a little different because of Kieran, because like originally, as I said, I played this kind of character in a play I wrote, so I was going to play it, and I would have played it a little differently. I would have played it, and as it was conceived in my head, was like just a little more rage on the surface, so like just a little bit kind of standoffish and like rageful. And Kieran came in
That's
and
interesting because when I asked you, I said, "How would you play it?" You were like, just sort of like
Yeah.
sort of like.
exactly like a little
I
bit.
was like, I don't know what that means, but now you're
Like
articulating.
a little bit
All right,
like, yo, fuck off. Like this kind of guy who's like more standoffish, like fuck you. That kind of thing. And Kieran's like, fuck you. And it's so sweet. And so when we were doing it, again, it didn't read to me as exactly what I had pictured for a long time. But it read to me as so beautiful. It was he, you know, it's somebody whose highs were really high and whose lows were really low. And so when Kieran was doing the role, the highs were higher and it was more lovable. And so I thought, oh, this is a wonderful kind of take on the character. And so I was so happy. You know, as a director, you kind of be flexible with 1,000 things. Like, you know, I had to rewrite the weed scene. You know, so you're, as a director, what I'm learning is, you know, you got to be just flexible with so many different things. And one of those things is that the co-lead is playing it a little differently, but I'm watching it and going, this is amazing. This is amazing. This is amazing. I mean, it's the greatest performance of the year, apparently. I mean, according to everybody. So it was a wonderful, wonderful change for me.
By the way, the reason why I chuckled when you asked the question was sort of like, because you're like, oh, when you met him, and it's like, we had a phone call where he was like, would you do the movie? And I said, yes, assuming that like, okay, if we're not going to do the audition thing, he must be familiar with my work. It must be, this guy has not seen me in anything ever. It's true. And yet on a phone call was like, oh, you liked it? Yeah, do you want to do it? And still thinks this is a normal way to cast people in a movie. So it's like, when you met him, I'm like, you mean when I was on set doing the scene already? Yeah. I really hope that it wouldn't be a horrible surprise for you.
I mean, there's no one else like him in the world. There's no one else like him on the planet, and the movie, it requires the essence of somebody so special. So it's not just an acting role. It's somebody who is like, I hate to say the word movie star, but it has something where like you love this person irrespective of what they're doing. And he has this quality. He's a genius actor and happens to have this thing that's related, but I don't know how, which is just this incredible magnetism. He's a genius. And I don't know what he's doing because he doesn't tell me. And so it was just getting this thing, this person, this entity to do this thing. And it's not a traditional acting role. It's like this thing that's so mercurial. Even by the end, you're like, I don't understand him, but I want to see his face more. You know, it's that kind of thing. Okay, do you want to finish it out, sir?
Yeah, you talked about the 3 generations of the immigrants, and the phrase I heard is that the grandchildren want to remember what the grandparents want to forget.
Yeah.
So the question is really, how much of your own family history compelled you to tell this story?
Wow, that's such a lovely question. Thank you. Yeah, we talk about Grandma Dory. That was my Aunt Doris. She kind of like, I would say like raised me from the time I was 17. I went to her every week. I even lived with her in my late 20s, early 30s. And she was really tough on me. She lived to 109. Sorry, she lived to 107. In 2019, she died. I'm sorry. And so she was born and raised in that house that we filmed in. And, you know, when I would ask my parents about what happened to our family during the war, my dad knew nothing because his parents didn't want to tell him anything because they were so torn up with what they left. All their cousins, aunts, uncles died. And my grandfather's, and so he never talked about it with my family. And so it was me, the 3rd generation, who's kind of like, maybe insensitive and curious enough to ask the questions that were never asked before, and I became obsessed with my family's history, I started piecing together things and getting papers. I became a Polish citizen recently because I just became obsessed with wanting to know about the history and wanting to write something personal, something that was about all my feelings about that history, and my feelings about that history are that I can't believe that, I'm such a depressed person when my family had survived through 1,000 miracles, and how come I'm walking around the world all day being miserable? How is it possible? Shouldn't I be jumping up and down and kissing the ground and running for president and all the things that you would do if you survived if you're the luckiest person in the world to have survived? And so that's the kind of thing I was writing about. And this movie has gotten me no closer to any answer, but they got me EU citizenship. So I guess that's it's kind of a weird consolation prize. But thank you so much for coming today. It's so nice of you. Thank you.